What if the true stories of the Lost in Space cast were far more captivating than their on-screen adventures among the stars? Behind every silver spacesuit lay tales of impossible love, fleeting success, and ultimately, tragic destinies. While some discovered glory in the most unexpected of places, others simply faded into obscurity, yet they all continue to orbit within our collective memory. Guy Williams wasn't just the commander of the Jupiter 2, he was a hero both on and off the screen. A man who chose to disappear at the very moment the world adored him. Born Armando Catalano in New Orleans in 1924. As the son of Italian immigrants, he spent his childhood dreaming of the very adventures he would one day enact before millions of viewers. He first won over the public as Zorro, the dashing and justice-seeking swordsman who left a mark on an entire generation. But when Lost in Space arrived on television in 1965, Guy Williams was transformed into Dr. John Robinson, the quintessential father figure and the calm leader guiding his family across the galaxies. For 3 years, his image became inseparable from the very idea of a television hero. His bearing, his deep voice, and his noble aura defined a golden era. Yet, as the series concluded in 1968, at the absolute pinnacle of his fame, Williams made a decision that was as courageous as it was mysterious. He would abandon Hollywood for good. Nobody could quite wrap their head around it. He wasn't fleeing from his success. He was seeking a new life, a different horizon. That new destiny awaited him in Argentina. Far from the glaring spotlights of Los Angeles, he rediscovered his youth. For the people of Argentina, Guy Williams wasn't just some foreign actor. He was Zorro, a national hero. His fencing exhibitions filled stadiums. Children chanted his name. Crowds followed him as if he were a rock star. With his fluent Spanish, his enchanting smile and timeless elegance solidified his status as a cultural icon. It was also in Buenos Aires that he found love with Araceli Lizazo, a journalist almost 30 years younger than him, who would become his companion and his final great love. While their relationship made headlines, drawing both admiration and curiosity, Williams himself never courted controversy. He much preferred the tranquility of a private life, enjoying the rewards of his intelligent planning and a level of fame that no longer required constant tending. On the 7th of May, 1989, the legend met a tragic end. Guy was discovered lifeless in his apartment in the Recoleta district. He had actually passed away days before, the victim of a cerebral aneurysm. He was 65 years old. No one had noticed. No one had called. The hero who had saved his family from intergalactic peril died alone and in silence. But his story did not end there. In Argentina, his tomb continues to be adorned with flowers. New generations still speak his name with a mixture of fondness and melancholy. On vintage television screens, his sword still shines, and his smile remains untouched by time. Guy never went back to Hollywood because he didn't have to. He had already achieved immortality. Let me know what you think in the comments. Which role defines Guy Williams for you? The masked hero or the father leading his family among the stars? Next up, June Lockhart. If Guy Williams was the heroic heart of Lost in Space, then June Lockhart was undoubtedly its soul, embodying serenity, intelligence, and a warmth that transcended the screen. This is how we remember the woman who gave life to Maureen Robinson, the mother who faced the vastness of space with a steadfast smile and a brilliant scientific mind. Born in 1925 into a family of actors in New York, June seemed destined for the spotlight. She made her debut as a mere teenager in A Christmas Carol, appearing alongside her own parents, Jean and Kathleen Lockhart, who were both esteemed figures in classical theater. This artistic legacy shaped her into a performer who would eventually master the delicate balance between elegance and strength. Throughout the 1960s, her name became synonymous with a kind of gentle authority. On Lost in Space, which ran from 1965 to 1968, June portrayed something far greater than just a mother in space. She was a true female pioneer in science fiction, a genre typically dominated by men and muscle-bound heroes. Her character wasn't just there to cook or offer comfort. She was a biologist, a strategist, and often the voice of reason when galactic chaos threatened the Robinson family. Her serene demeanor became a beacon of light for audiences across the globe. Behind the scenes, Lockhart radiated the very same maternal warmth she projected on screen. Her castmates consistently described her as a woman of immense generosity, discipline, and brilliance. With an incredible ability to transform any grueling day on set into a warm, family-like experience. In later interviews, she would fondly joke about the endless filming days and those notoriously impossible silver costumes, but also about the profound sense that they were creating something truly timeless. And she was absolutely right. Nearly 6 decades later, her face remains the definitive image of space's most cherished matriarch. But her career was far from over when the Jupiter 2 landed. She went on to star in iconic shows like Lassie and Petticoat Junction and graced the stage in numerous theatrical productions. She even earned 2 prestigious Tony Award nominations early in her career, proving her remarkable talent extended far beyond the small screen. Throughout a career spanning more than 8 decades in the entertainment industry, June Lockhart became an enduring symbol of perseverance and grace. Now, in 2025, June Lockhart has just celebrated her 100th birthday. She resides in her historic Brentwood, California home, a property that has been cherished by her family for generations. Despite officially retiring from the public eye in 2015, her mind remains as sharp, lucid, and inquisitive as ever. She starts each morning by reading the New York Times, keenly follows the political landscape, and continues to champion environmental causes. Her daughter, Anne Lockhart, an accomplished actress in her own right known for Battlestar Galactica, proudly shares photos and touching anecdotes about her mother on social media, where thousands of devoted fans continue to celebrate her legacy with immense affection. Her former co-star, John Provost, quipped in a recent interview, "She's a national treasure, and she still drinks better wine than I do." At 100 years old, June Lockhart remains far more than just a veteran actress. She is a living testament to the enduring power of elegance, discipline, and humanity in an industry known for its fleeting memory. Her eyes still hold that signature blend of intelligence and tenderness that made Maureen Robinson a mother figure for everyone who grew up with their eyes on the stars. In an age where everything seems to change at the speed of light, June Lockhart remains a constant, like a steady beacon in the vastness of space, the futuristic mother who has never ceased to guide us. And then there was Mark Goddard. In Lost in Space, he played the daring and often impulsive Major Don West, the hotshot pilot who battled meteor showers, hostile planets, and the never-ending schemes of Dr. Smith. But away from the cameras, his personal journey was a remarkable story of a man who walked away from the limelight to find a deeper purpose in teaching and faith. Born Charles Harvey Goddard in Lowell, Massachusetts in 1936, he harbored the classic American dream of becoming an actor. His natural charisma and confident smile were his ticket to Hollywood, opening doors for him in the late 1950s. Even before he boarded the Jupiter 2, he had already made a name for himself, appearing in popular series like Johnny Ringo and The Detectives. However, it was his role in Lost in Space from 1965 to 1968 that cemented his status as a household name for millions of viewers. On screen, Goddard was the quintessential adventurer, brave, loyal, and with a sarcastic edge that made him utterly irresistible. His on-screen chemistry with the Robinson family, particularly with young Will, added a surprising depth to a character that could have easily been just another generic space hero. But when the series concluded and the studio lights dimmed, Mark Goddard chose a path that left many in Hollywood scratching their heads. He virtually abandoned acting, returned to his home state, and enrolled at Bridgewater State College, where he earned a master's degree in education and devoted more than 2 decades of his life to teaching special education to youths facing emotional challenges. "It was the most meaningful work of my life," he revealed in one of his final interviews. He often joked that the silver spacesuit he wore on Lost in Space made him look like a baked potato wrapped in tinfoil. But beneath that humor was a man who was comfortable enough to laugh at himself and his television legacy. While he stepped away from the celebrity world, he never turned his back on it. Throughout the 1990s and the 2000s, he became a regular and cherished guest at science fiction conventions, where he would greet fans with genuine warmth and share behind-the-scenes stories from the set. He even made a cameo in the 1998 film, symbolically passing the torch to a new generation of space explorers. In his personal life, he found stability alongside Evely Peselich, a professor at Bridgewater State University. They shared a mutual love for travel, faith, and serving others. Goddard became a lay minister, offering spiritual support to people facing illness, grief, or a crisis of faith. On the 10th of October, 2023, Mark Goddard made his final journey to the stars. He was 87 years old. His colleagues remembered him as a kind, wise, and profoundly human man. His co-star Bill Mumy described him as a true gentleman and a great actor, securing his place in the collective memory. Mark Goddard continues to pilot the Jupiter 2, guiding his crew with a signature blend of bravery and humility. But his greatest legacy is not in space or on television, but in the classrooms where he taught others to see the world with hope. Because in the end, Major Don West didn't just travel between planets. He also learned how to land with his heart. Martha Kristen. Before journeying through the cosmos as Judy Robinson, Martha Kristen had already lived a story worthy of a motion picture. She was born in Norway during the height of the Second World War, and at just 4 years old was adopted by an American couple who brought her to Detroit. That childhood, marked by being uprooted, forged a special sensitivity within her. A mixture of melancholy and curiosity that would later bring her most remembered character to life. Her career began at a young age. By 18, she was already acting alongside legends like Alfred Hitchcock and Walt Disney, but it was in 1965 when fate brought her aboard the Jupiter 1. In Lost in Space, Marta portrayed Judy Robinson, the family's eldest daughter, intelligent, elegant, and responsible, but also a dreamer. Although her role was often eclipsed by the robots, the aliens, or the eccentric Dr. Smith, her presence provided balance and humanity to the group. She was the youthful heart of the stellar journey. Behind the cameras, Marta was a big sister to everyone. Her sweetness and calm humor became the unifying force for the cast. Decades later, she herself would say that the true treasure of the series wasn't the fame, but the bonds she created. We were a real family, not just a fictional one. After the show ended in 1968, Kristen remained active in television and theater. But she chose a quieter life away from the hustle and bustle of Hollywood. She married, started a family, and discovered another passion, advocating for animal rights. Her life away from science fiction became a constant search for harmony and purpose. In 2016, tragedy knocked on her door with the death of her husband, Kevin Kane. Marta transformed her pain into creativity and began to write, to paint, and to participate in talks on emotional well-being. In her own words, every ending can be the beginning of another journey. Today, in 2025, Martha Kristen is 80 years old and remains a radiant figure with a serene gaze that still holds the light of the 1960s. She frequently participates in science fiction conventions, where she converses with fans as if she were old friends. Her friendship with Bill Mumy and Angela Cartwright remains fully intact. They get together, recall anecdotes, sing Bob Dylan songs, and laugh as if no time has passed. Amidst photographs, books, and memories, Marta keeps the spirit of Lost in Space alive. Through her soft voice and luminous smile, she demonstrates that the true journey never ends. Because even when the Jupiter 2 no longer takes off, Martha Kristen continues to explore, this time the galaxies of the soul. Bill Mumy. When fans of Lost in Space hear the phrase, "Danger, Will Robinson," a smile of nostalgia inevitably appears on their faces. Behind that red-headed, curious, and intrepid boy was Bill Mumy, one of the most talented child actors of his generation, whose story is a journey as long and fascinating as the orbits of the Jupiter 2. Born in 1954 in San Gabriel, California, Bill began acting at the age of 5. Before becoming the little space explorer, he had already appeared in legendary series like The Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and The Fugitive. His natural ease in front of the camera, his innocent expression, and a startling emotional maturity made him the very soul of Lost in Space, which premiered in 1965. For 3 seasons, he was the heart of the Robinson family, brave, inquisitive, and at times far wiser than the adults who surrounded him. But when the series concluded in 1968, Mumy did what many child actors do. He voluntarily stepped away from the spotlight, but he never left the arts. Rather than chasing repetitive roles, he ventured into other creative universes, including music, writing, producing, and voiceover work. In the 90s, he returned to science fiction with the role of Lennier in Babylon 5, where he proved that his talent had matured without losing any of its brilliance. He also co-created the Nickelodeon series Space Cases and lent his voice to dozens of animated characters, from Batman the Animated Series to Ren and Stimpy. As a musician, Mumy cultivated a career that was both solid and discreet. He recorded several solo albums and collaborated with the band America, with whom he co-wrote the hit You Can Do Magic. His creativity seemed to know no bounds, and although many still identified him as the eternal boy from space, he embraced that legacy with gratitude and pride. His connection to Lost in Space was never broken. In 2016, alongside his castmate Angela Cartwright, he published the book Lost and Found in Space, a gem filled with unpublished photographs and cherished memories. And in 2018, Mumy made a symbolic return to his original universe with a cameo in the Netflix reboot, playing Dr. Zachary Smith in a tribute to the unforgettable Jonathan Harris. It was a moment charged with emotion. The boy who once shouted, "Danger!" was now becoming the mentor, bringing a life devoted to imagination full circle. Today, in 2025, Bill Mumy is 71 years old and lives in Los Angeles with his wife Eileen, with whom he has shared more than 3 decades of marriage. His children, Seth and Liliana, have pursued their own creative paths, and his grandson Nathan appears to have inherited that same curious sparkle in his eyes. In a recent Instagram video, Bill is playing the harmonica alongside his grandson. The clip has amassed thousands of nostalgic comments. "You've still got it, Will," one fan wrote. And yes, he certainly does. Bill Mumy didn't just portray a boy lost in space. He taught entire generations that dreams, if nurtured gently, are never lost. They simply change their orbit. Angela Cartwright. Among the many faces that illuminated the universe of Lost in Space, few retained their purity and charm quite like Angela Cartwright, the unforgettable Penny Robinson. Her curious gaze, her natural tenderness, and that blend of innocence and bravery made her the personification of childhood wonder in the face of the unknown. But behind the little girl who explored galaxies, there was an artist who, even after leaving acting, never ceased to create new worlds. Born on the 9th of September 1952 in Altrincham, England, Angela moved to Los Angeles as just a young girl. Her talent was evident early on. Before she was traversing space with the Robinsons, she had already conquered Hollywood by playing Brigida Von Trapp in The Sound of Music in 1965, one of the most cherished films of all time. She also starred in The Danny Thomas Show for 7 seasons, becoming one of the most recognized young actresses in American television. When Lost in Space came along, Angela was just 13 years old. Her character, Penny, was the dreamer of the group, the voice of empathy in the midst of danger. While the adults were debating survival, she found beauty on new planets, spoke with alien creatures, and reminded everyone that even in space, curiosity remains profoundly human. She was, without question, the emotional compass of the series. As time passed, Angela decided to step away from acting to explore her true calling, visual art. Her Los Angeles studio today is a reflection of her soul, with its walls covered in photographs, collages, paintings, and memories from a lifetime devoted to creativity. Each piece of art seems like a small universe, an extension of that little girl who never stopped looking at the world with wonder. In 2025, at 73 years of age, she leads a full and serene life with her husband, Steve Gullion, to whom she has been married since 1976. She is a mother and a grandmother, but also a teacher to thousands of fans who follow her artistic work through online workshops and exhibitions, a union they have shared since 1976. She is a mother and grandmother, but also a mentor to thousands of fans who follow her artistic endeavors in online workshops and exhibitions. Through her website, she shares limited editions, illustrated books, and collaborative projects. One of the most cherished is Lost and Found in Space, co-written with her lifelong friend Bill Mumy, a nostalgic journey through unpublished photographs and intimate memories from the set. Angela also maintains a deep and endearing bond with her sister, actress Veronica Cartwright, with whom she shares family moments filled with humor and nostalgia. In recent interviews, Angela often says that the legacy of Lost in Space was not just professional, but profoundly emotional. The series gave us more than a job, she reflects. It gave us a family, and that family still includes the fans. Today, with silver hair and a luminous serenity, Angela Cartwright continues to radiate the same energy that made her unforgettable. She has traded her spacesuits for paintbrushes, but her mission remains the same, to explore new worlds, this time with her heart. Jonathan Harris. If Lost in Space had a mischievous, brilliant, and utterly unforgettable soul, it was that of Dr. Zachary Smith. His character, originally conceived as a cold and calculating saboteur, was transformed by his genius into something entirely different. A comical, melodramatic, egocentric villain who, paradoxically, became the heart of the show. Born on November 6, 1914, in the Bronx as Jonathan Sharasuchin, he was the son of Russian Jewish immigrants. Harris grew up in a humble home, but possessed an immense imagination. From a young age, he knew he didn't want an ordinary life. With ironclad discipline, he studied pharmacology at Fordham University, but the laboratory could not contain his theatrical spirit. He abandoned science for the stage, and from that pivotal change, one of the most unique careers in American television would be born. When Lost in Space debuted in 1965, Dr. Smith was supposed to be killed off after just a few episodes, but Harris had other plans. He rewrote lines and improvised gestures with his refined accent until the audience completely surrendered to his genius. With his refined accent, his air of a decadent dandy, and his endless repertoire of laments like the mythical, "Oh, the pain, the pain," he turned Smith into the true protagonist. He was no longer the villain. He was the comedic soul, the tragic jester, the man we all love to hate. Behind the cameras, Harris was as meticulous as his character, elegant, demanding, and always theatrical. He constructed a carefully crafted public persona. He shed his New York accent, adopted a mid-Atlantic pronunciation, and proudly declared, "I invented myself." His transformation was total, and with it, he left an indelible mark on television. After the end of Lost in Space, Harris did not disappear. He reinvented himself once more, this time as a voice actor. His distinguished tone and theatrical energy brought to life beloved characters in modern animation. He was Manny the praying mantis in Pixar's A Bug's Life, the cleaner in Toy Story 2, and lent his voice to many other roles in series and films. He even participated in Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, proving that his talent could transcend generations. His final work, the animated short The Bolt Who Screwed Christmas, was released posthumously in 2009, a perfect tribute to his eccentric spirit and refined humor. Harris had passed away in 2002, just a few days before his 88th birthday. In 2025, more than 2 decades later, his shadow is still very much alive. Dr. Smith's lines circulate on social media. Memes revive his gestures, and fans rediscover him through streaming. His colleague and friend Bill Mumy summed it up with a phrase that defines him completely. There would be no Lost in Space without Jonathan Harris. He was the show. And so, in every laugh, in every ironic wink from Dr. Smith, the genius of a man who understood that the best way to be remembered was to turn villainy into art and ego into eternity continues to shine. More than 6 decades have passed since the Jupiter 2 first launched into the unknown, yet its crew continues to travel, not between planets, but through memories. Each actor, with their triumphs and tragedies, left a mark that transcends the limits of time and the screen. Lost in Space was more than just a series about the future. It was a story about family, curiosity, and the human desire to always search for a horizon beyond our own. In Argentina, Guy Williams is remembered as an immortal hero. In California, June Lockhart celebrates her century of life, a true symbol of elegance and strength. Bill Mumy and Angela Cartwright continue to create art as if they never left the spaceship. Marta Kristen and Mark Goddard transformed fame into a calling, and Jonathan Harris, with his infinite humor, still floats in the orbit of pop culture. The true miracle of Lost in Space isn't found in its special effects or its cardboard robots, but in the humanity of those who brought it to life. They reminded us that even in the farthest corners of the universe, we are all searching for the same things: love, family, purpose, and hope. Today, whenever someone hears that distant echo, "Danger, Will Robinson," something ignites in the hearts of those who grew up looking at the stars. Because Lost in Space never really ended. It just moved to a different galaxy. And we, its viewers, are still journeying with them, traveling alongside them, exploring with them, traveling with Bill Mumy. When fans of Lost in Space hear the phrase "Danger, Will Robinson," a nostalgic smile inevitably graces their faces. Behind that red-haired, curious, and intrepid boy was Bill Mumy, one of the most gifted child actors of his generation, whose story is a journey as long and fascinating as the orbits of the Jupiter 2. Born in 1954 in San Gabriel, California, Bill began his acting career at the age of 5. Before he became the little space explorer, he had already appeared in legendary series like The Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and The Fugitive. His natural ease in front of the camera, his innocent expression, and a surprising emotional maturity made him the very soul of Lost in Space, which premiered in 1965. For 3 seasons, he was the heart of the Robinson family, courageous, inquisitive, and at times wiser than the adults surrounding him. But when the series concluded in 1968, Mumy did something common among child actors. He voluntarily stepped away from the spotlight, but never away from art. Instead of chasing repetitive roles, he explored other creative universes: music, writing. In the 1990s, he returned to science fiction with the role of Lennier in Babylon 5, where he proved that his talent had matured without losing its brilliance. He also co-created the Nickelodeon series Space Cases and lent his voice to dozens of animated characters, from Batman the Animated Series to Ren and Stimpy. As a musician, Mumy developed a career that was both solid and understated. He recorded several solo albums and collaborated with the band America, with whom he co-wrote the hit You Can Do Magic. His creativity seemed to know no bounds, and although many still identified him as the eternal space boy, he embraced that legacy with gratitude and pride. His bond with Lost in Space was never severed. In 2016, alongside his castmate, Angela Cartwright, he published the book Lost and Found in Space, a gem filled with unpublished photographs and cherished memories. And in 2018, Mumy symbolically returned to his original universe with a cameo in the Netflix reboot, playing Dr. Zachary Smith in a tribute to the unforgettable Jonathan Harris. It was a moment charged with emotion. The boy who had cried "Danger" had become the mentor, closing the circle on a life dedicated to imagination. Today, in 2025, Bill Mumy is 71 years old and lives in Los Angeles with his wife Eileen, with whom he has shared over 3 decades of marriage. His children, Seth and Liliana, have followed creative paths, and his grandson, Nathan, seems to have inherited the same curious sparkle in his eyes. In a recent Instagram video, Bill plays the harmonica alongside his grandson. The clip has amassed thousands of nostalgic comments. "You still got it, Will," one fan wrote. And yes, he certainly does. Bill Mumy didn't just play a child lost in space. He taught entire generations that dreams, if nurtured with tenderness, are never truly lost. They just change their orbit. Angela Cartwright. Among the many faces that illuminated the universe of Lost in Space, Yet few retained that purity and charm quite like Angela Cartwright, the unforgettable Penny Robinson. Her endlessly curious gaze, her natural charm, a delicate mix of innocence and bravery, perfectly captured the essence of childhood wonder in the face of the great unknown. Yet, behind the girl who traversed galaxies, there was an artist who never ceased to build new worlds, even long after she stepped away from the spotlight. She was born on the 9th of September, 1952, in Altrincham, England. Angela relocated to Los Angeles when she was just a young girl, and her talent blossomed early on, well before she was set to journey through space with the Robinsons. In fact, she had already taken Hollywood by storm with her portrayal of Brigitte von Trapp in The Sound of Music from 1965, a film that remains one of the most cherished classics ever made. She also held a starring role on The Danny Thomas Show for 7 seasons, cementing her status as one of the most recognizable young actresses in American television. By the time Lost in Space came along, Angela was merely 13 years old, and her character, Penny, was the group's dreamer, serving as a beacon of empathy in the face of constant peril. While the adults were engrossed in debates about mere survival, she was the one discovering the inherent beauty of the strange new planets they encountered. She would communicate with alien creatures, reminding everyone that even in the vastness of space, curiosity is a fundamentally human trait. She was, without a doubt, the emotional compass of the series. As the years went by, Angela chose to step back from acting to pursue her true passion, visual art. Today, her Los Angeles studio stands as a true reflection of her soul, its walls adorned with photographs, collages, paintings, and memorabilia from a lifetime devoted entirely to creativity. Each piece of her art feels like a miniature universe, a direct extension of the wide-eyed girl who never lost her sense of wonder. In 2025, at the age of 73, she lives a full and peaceful life alongside her husband, Steve Gooley, to whom she has been married since 1976.